Folks, our long national nightmare is over. Jonathan Kaminga has signed with the Golden State Warriors. It was reported as a 2-year, $48.5 million contract. We're going to talk about all of the angles with that with Bryce Simon here. We're doing this just as a quick YouTube video. We're going to be in and out in 30 minutes. We will also put this up on the podcast feed. So, we're not going like super long on this, but we will talk in depth about it to a real extent. Before we do that, we got to shout out the Substack. Go subscribe to the Game Theory Substack. Game Theory Sam V, GameTheorySamV.substack.com. Bryce has been the active participant so far this week. We've got a video on Dash Daniels. Has the Karim Lopez one gone up yet, or is it tomorrow?
Nope. They are both live and available for people to watch.
Fantastic. So you can go watch Dash Daniels. He had 14 points against New Zealand. You can go watch Karim Lopez. He had 14 against Melbourne United. I would argue Karim's 14 was much less impressive than Dash's 14, but that's neither here nor there. Go to the Substack, hit the subscribe. It is the best way for you to support Game Theory, the YouTube channel, the show as a whole. We appreciate all of you immensely. Okay. Jonathan Kaminga. 2 years, $48.5 million. Part of this, now that they have gotten the Kuminga deal done, is that they have signed Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, Gary Payton II. So those 4 signings are all like actually in place now. Al Horford, according to Mike Scotto, has gotten 2 years, $12 million, 5.7 for this season. That is the full taxpayer MLE. And then 6.3 on a player option for the 2026-27 season. We've talked throughout the summer about Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga is an intriguing player that certainly had, I don't know, would you call last season a breakout season, Bryce?
It's so hard because I feel like we've seen the glimpses, but at the same time, we've seen Steve Kerr and the Warriors not trust him, including in the playoffs, and then be forced to trust him in the playoffs. And then he puts up points. Like, I think at the very least, Kaminga has proven that he can go get buckets if he's in a situation where he's asked to. When you look at the raw numbers, though, Sam, last year wasn't really any more impressive than the year before. Games played, field goal percentage, even 3-point percentage. So, I'm over the last 2 years, the scoring output at least looks interesting, at least, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. So let's talk about all the options that he had on his table. So according to all the reporting, including from The Athletic, the site that I work for, and the site where you can get the best coverage of all of this, and we'll talk about that momentarily. Jonathan Kuminga had 3 options essentially on the table contractually, right? He had, I believe, a 3-year, $75 million deal where the first 2 years were guaranteed and the third year was a team option. He had this contract to 48.5-ish, let's call it. Essentially what this is it's a 1 year, let's call it $24 million deal, something like that, with a potential for more, like 25 million or so in 2026-27. But the second year is a team option here. Ultimately, what this deal does, and on top of it, it's worth noting that it has been reported that Jonathan Kuminga has waived his inherent no trade clause, and you get an inherent no trade clause if you do a 1-year deal, basically, when you have bird rights, because you don't want your bird rights to be removed because it can be financially disastrous for you. Potentially,
and options don't count.
Limit your marketplace.
Player or team option doesn't count, and so that's why it's considered a 1-year deal for this purpose.
Correct. And Jonathan Kuminga is now eligible to be moved on, I believe, January 15th.
I think that's what I saw as well.
So the other option here that Kuminga had was the qualifying offer. And Aaron Turner went on all of these podcasts and went on many forms of media and tried to say, oh no, the qualifying qualifying offer, I'm sorry, is a real option for us. It was, I don't want to say it was never a real option because I don't like to get in the headspace of other people and the decisions that they could theoretically make, right? We see irrational, bad decisions all the time in the NBA. That's something that you and I talk about on the show all the time, is that things happen, right? It would have been an insane choice for Jonathan Kuminga to take the qualifying offer. And for all of the people that have been telling me, no, he has a ton of leverage here. The Warriors don't have any leverage. Like, they need him to get signed by October 1st, and they need this and they need that. And if he signs the qualifying offer, they lose all of their trade leverage and all that bullshit. The reality here is that $15 million is a shit ton of money, guys. And the reason that the Warriors had leverage is because they had the ability to get under the second apron and offer him that much money. Is he really going to turn down $13 to $15 million extra this year? When the reality is that that's going to be really hard for him to make up into the future. If he takes $8 million this year, instead of, 250, 248, 247, 246, whatever the number is going to turn out to be, right? If he takes all of that money, or if he takes the qualifying offer versus that money, he has to essentially get, I would argue, like a $35 million contract per season next year to make himself whole. And I just don't know if that's going to be out there on the market for Jonathan Kuminga at the end of the day, given what we've seen from Kuminga at this point. We'll talk about that like in a little bit in terms of what his game is and what he needs to improve upon in order for to continue to have success. The other part of the qualifying offer that made this incredibly complicated for Jonathan Kuminga, Aaron Turner, everybody involved, is that if he takes the qualifying offer, there is no reason for the Warriors to take him seriously as a piece of their team moving forward. There is no, if they think he's not a good fit playing with Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, something that we saw last year, literally in the playoffs, they don't have to play him. Like, there's just no reason to really play him that much because he has a no trade clause by taking the qualifying offer. So you're probably not going to get a crazy amount of value for him on the trade deadline. So you can't really pump up his value by playing him that much. And then on top of it, you just don't really have any long-term like feasibility in terms of connection here with the player because he's an unrestricted free agent next season anyway. So he would have had zero leash and zero margin for error by taking the qualifying offer. That's why, and we said this throughout the summer, that's why him taking the qualifying offer to me was always kind of an empty threat. Because if you take the qualifying offer and this doesn't work, you're making probably about, maybe somebody gives you the mid-level next year and you will have burned $9 million. And if you're an agent, that's really hard to come back from. Like, you might get fired if you burn $9 million for your client. So I look at this and I think that this is the right call for Kuminga. Take this extra $15 million. Yes, you don't have control over where you are for the next, 2 years, year and a half, year, whatever it is, if a team that you don't like trades for you, but you're still young enough at 22, 23 years old, about to turn 23, to where you will have your freedom at 25. And you will have an extra $50 million or 45, whatever it's going to be. At the very least, you'll have an extra $23 million from this year in your bank account, and you'll have made $50 million in your career, right? That's why this had to be what it is.
So is that why you wouldn't have done the 3-year deal? Because like, I still find myself going to that a little bit. Like, that's a lot of money to guarantee, Sam. But is it like, okay, I don't want to lock in for 2 years of Golden State potentially, or when they trade me in January, if they trade me in January, now I have less freedom with the new team. Is that why I just look at, I mean, the 3 for 75, like that's a guaranteed 50 million over the next 2 years too. Like that seems like a lot of money, but is it the freedom of the 2-year deal? Do you think that that's kind of the happy medium for Kaminga?
So look, as soon as we get back from the commercial break, we'll talk about this a little bit. I think you and I are probably lower on Jonathan Kuminga as a player than Jonathan Kuminga and Aaron Turner are
Sure.
overall, right?
Sure.
So I think this can be seen. Personally, I would have advised taking the 375 deal if I was his agent, but I also probably wouldn't be representing Jonathan Kuminga because I am like I probably wouldn't have won the rights to be his agent in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And thus like wouldn't have been as excited about it. And he wouldn't have been as excited about signing me if I put myself like in the shoes of an agent. Right.
Sure. Yep.
So I think that this is a happy medium in a way that makes some sense. Look, like, do I think Aaron Turner got anything whatsoever by going on his podcast spree and going public with all this stuff? No. Like, and honestly, I kind of wonder if he made it so the Warriors like kind of, and we talked about this too, like when you go public with this stuff as an agent, you're kind of giving away what your position is, right? You're letting everybody know where you're at on all of this stuff. And that also means that you're letting everybody know where the Warriors are at on all of this stuff. And part of it was Aaron Turner didn't leak that. That all came out obviously beforehand, and then he went on the shows. But once you go public, you kind of, if you're the Warriors, you can't really, bite at that point. Like you can't just fold because that really hinders you in the eyes of other agents and other negotiating strategies. So I think that kind of once he went public, I think the Warriors had to really lock in their position that we're not moving off of this team option, which is ultimately, it seems like what Kuminga and Aaron Turner and everybody wanted was the team option to be removed for a player option at the end of the day. So I don't really think he helped himself by doing this, is what I would say. And in fact, I wonder if he may have not, gotten the value that he wanted.
The other thing, I was trying to find reporting on the 1-year deal that we referenced earlier. I wonder if we are misremembering that.
We could be conflating it with Grimes too.
Yeah, because my thought is Golden State. I wonder if Golden State would offer that, if they would not.
So it was 245 or 248, whatever it is. It was 375. And then it was a fully guaranteed 354.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's what the other 3-year deal
That's
was.
what the third one was.
Yeah. The more I thought about it, I was like, Golden State probably didn't put the 1 year, even if they got him to waive the inherent no trade, they still want the team option on year 2. I know we got to go to break, but I'm kind of interested to talk not just through Kaminga as the player, but like that, but also like, what can Golden State do to get the best trade value out of Kaminga? Because I think we all know that ultimately that's probably where they want this to go. So how do they best do that? And I'm sure we'll get into that after you give a lovely sponsor some love.
We got to shout out our friends over at Nutrafol. If you're dealing with hair issues like thinning or shedding, but feel totally stuck on what to try next, there are so many products out there, and it can be hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's exactly why Nutrafol deserves a closer look. It's not just hype, it's physician formulated, clinically tested, and even recommended by dermatologists. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. You can feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified, the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. You can see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter that promo code Game Theory. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. promo code Game Theory. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Game Theory. So yeah, let's talk about Kuminga as a player, and let's talk about where this is going. So I think that what this sets up for, from a Warriors perspective, is for them to trade, to have the ability to trade him at the deadline, right? And the reason that they needed this is because if you look at their cap sheet as a whole, and we'll put it up on the screen kind of while we're talking. If you look at their cap sheet as a whole, they really did not have many deals in this, let's call it,
sure,
20 to $30 million range. Really, I would argue the 12, $30 million range.
I was going to say 12. Yeah, because Moody's at 11.5 is the next closest number there.
Yeah. So what makes this really interesting for the Warriors is we try to figure out, okay, what is their next step? What do they do here? As you can see on the screen, or, if you're just listening, we've got Curry, Jimmy Butler up over 50. We've got Draymond Green at 25. And then the next outside of Kuminga is Moses Moody at 11 and Buddy Hield at 9. So they needed this like mid-sized, mid-tier contract to be able to kind of find a world where they could actually make moves, right?
Yep.
I think that what this does is it really opens up their ability to go get like a fourth star next to Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, or maybe Kuminga emerges into that. Maybe he's become like a hyper awesome shooter or whatever, right? Like maybe that's what it is. But I think that what this does is it really allows them, given that they have all of their picks as well moving forward.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at. That's important here.
The ability to go and kind of make some moves here if they really want to. And it really kicks the can down the road. What if somebody gets hurt and a team looks at Kuminga as like an interesting asset to be able to have with real team value moving forward? So I like the idea of what they're doing here with this deal. And I think it gives them a lot more flexibility from a team perspective here at the deadline.
So my question, I guess, is on this deal, and we can compare it to the other deals or not. I don't know that we have to do that, but where do you think Kuminga lands then on this team? Like, do you think Kaminga do they need to play Kaminga to, like, obviously the better he plays, the more value they're going to get out of him. But do you think they look at it as essentially just a $23 to $25 million placeholder for a trade? Do you think he's going to play until January 15th and they're going to try to build his value in some way? Like, I think that's where I'm interested now, because as you mentioned, if he would have done the QO, I think we could have sat here and said, like, Warriors may just not play him at all. Like, they may just not care, but here I think they may be a little more inclined to try to, drive up his value, even though I think we both wonder how much he fits into what this team does. I'm just interested to see how they play that in terms of, is he just a $25 million trade exception, or are they going to use him in a way to try to win some regular season games and see if they can't bump his value?
I think they'll probably try to play him early in the season now. I think there's no reason not to play him early in the season is kind of my read.
Yeah.
And with that being the case, I think that you probably try to boost the value, right? Like, I think that given how deep the West is this year, you probably can't play around with it too much. Like, if it's not working, and Steve Kerr's inclination last year that Jimmy Butler and Draymond and Kuminga and whatever they, with Al Horford, at the center position, like, that just doesn't really work. Like, if that ends up not working, then I think that you probably have to, pull the ripcord relatively quickly. Like, you can give it 10 to 15 games, but you probably can't go much beyond that. The big difference here this year, though, is that the center position, all due respect to our beloved Quentin Post, a player that we both really like coming into the draft, had a nice rookie year. I think that having Al Horford as your starting center now, with his ability to space the floor, might give you just like a little bit more leeway to invert the floor and maybe get Kuminga in more positive situations than what you could a year ago with the other, starters out there.
So would you try to, I know, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in depth when we do our Western Conference over unders, and this is why we saved the Western Conference. So would you go Curry, Butler, Kuminga, Green, Horford to start the year? Would you try that out as a starting lineup, or you're just trying to go to that lineup early in games and early in seasons for some sort of minutes to see what it looks like? Like, are you bringing him off the bench, or are you trying to fit him into the starting lineup somehow?
I would probably start Buddy or Moody, to be honest, at the 2. And then I would bring Kuminga as the 6th man that comes in for Jimmy, at the 6-minute mark or whatever. And then, Jimmy comes in for Draymond at the 2-minute mark. And you kind of try to stagger it that way and make it so that you're not always playing those 3 guys on the court together at once, because I think that's where the real kind of struggle comes, is when all 3 of those guys are on the court together. But if you can make it work where you're staggering 2 of them at the same time, I think that'd be really good. Having said that, I am absolutely, throughout the first 10 games of the year, I'm seeing what it looks like with those 3 guys on the court for sure, with Horford at the very least, and seeing if there's a world where we can kind of make this work somehow. And if the spacing with Horford changes more than it would previously. But look, like, the thing with Jonathan Kuminga is, if he's going to be out there, frankly, with Jimmy and Steph, those are the 2, right? He has to do the little things. He has to give second and third efforts defensively all the time, not just in big moments, all the time. He has to knock down shots off the catch, which is a critical part of his game. He has to make good defensive rotations. He has to make the right reads off within their offense, like, all the time. He can't be delayed. He can't take the extra split second. Like, he has to do it all. And I think that that's where we want to go with Kuminga next, is like, just what is your evaluation of Jonathan Kuminga as a player within this scheme?
Yeah, I don't think he fits great. I mean, again, I don't want to take away from the talent of Jonathan Kaminga and what he can do in straight line drives and pressuring the rim and even in isolation. But we know that's not what Golden State does. We watched a guy like Dennis Schroeder not fit into this system last year either, and then go to Detroit and look better simply because they ran more ball screens and the way he wanted to play fit better with what Detroit did. And I just don't think it's a very good match. Going back to that draft now, you wonder if it was just a misevaluation of who Kaminga was or what they thought they could turn him into. I've referenced this a couple times. There was a game in the regular season, just during the middle of the regular season, where he makes a very simple pass. And you see the coaching staff, Kerr literally stands up off his chair and starts clapping really big. And it was literally, Sam, a middle drive and weak side kick to the corner that either you or I could make. But it was it's so frustrating, the things he doesn't see and the flows and the action and the quick decisions he doesn't make, that something as simple as a strong side driving kick to the weak side corner gets them excited. And to me, yeah, that's cool, but it kind of tells you all you need to know. To me, the only way this works is if you just say, hey, Kaminga, you're going to be our second unit bucket getter, and we're going to surround you with Buddy and Seth and Melton and, a stretch big. The problem is that defensively just is atrocious. And so I worry about the fit, Sam. I just really, really do.
Yeah. I mean, look, where we know the areas he has to improve, but maybe we should talk about his strengths, right? He's a very significant downhill driver.
Significant.
Who can really put paint pressure on opposing teams, right? He averaged 5 free throw attempts per game last year in 24 minutes a night. And it is a serious threat that when he catches, he is able to rip through, get to the middle of the court, and really rise up and be able to score.
Real quick, just stats, real quick, Sam. Because this was a team, free throw rate, all of that was a thing, especially till Jimmy got there. If you look per 36 with the Warriors, Jimmy averaged 8.5. Kaminga was only 1 below that. So just the numbers bear out exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a guy that can really get downhill and drive and is a good cut. Like he's a good cutter when he is like in the mood of cutting, right? Like he has real downhill presence as like a dunker spot player. I think that there are ways to make him work within this offense. It's just a little bit more challenging, particularly I think with Jimmy, because a lot of what Kuminga does, Jimmy is just a more polished version and better version of what Kuminga does than, at the end of the day. So I think that like finding ways to stagger those two particularly is really important. Honestly, it might be great for the Warriors to be able to like play Jimmy less early in the season now. Sure. And then like you just start Kuminga in those games and maybe Kuminga gets you 20 points and it works that way. But I like the ideas here of if Kuminga like really buys into this and goes, and I would highly suggest that he does, people can look at just like the box score ideal of what a player is, right? And say, oh, Kuminga averaged 18 points a game this year and did this, that, and the other thing. But if in his fifth year now, this will be year 5, NBA people are smarter than ever working in front offices, by and large. Like there are select few people that I have some questions about, but like by and large, NBA front offices are quite smart. And if he does not show the improvement consistently on the defensive end in terms of his overall team defense, we know he can be switchable in like moments, right? Like he's athletic enough and long enough to be a presence out there when switching, but like he has to play really, really tight team defense. He has to be consistently aware of what's happening on the backside around him. I would love to see him make some passes at some point. That would be great. But if he doesn't expand his game, he will be seen as more of a limited player entering the market. And where I want to finish here is in 2 places, right? So first, what does the market look like for Jonathan Kuminga next year? I am somewhat like skeptical that all of the teams that people think are going to have space are going to have space. I think Aaron Turner said on a podcast that he's thinking there are going to be like 10 or 12 teams that have space. I think that that's just like completely ludicrous. I do not think that there will end up being 10 to 12 teams that have space. You can look at it right now and you can see a world where 10 to 12 teams can potentially get to space, but that's just not where it's going to end up. I think at the end of the day, you can look at like the projected, cap space here. Keith hasn't updated his numbers yet. He's killing me. In terms of like the actual cap space that teams could have, in theory, I'm kind of looking to see what teams have allocated. I actually don't have a number yet. I'll have to look through it. I believe that Brooklyn can get space. I believe the Wizards can get space. I believe the Hornets can get space.
Technically, the Pistons can.
The Pistons theoretically can if they let go of Tobias Harris. I believe the Lakers could get space if LeBron retires. I think they wouldn't even have to get rid of Austin Reeves in that case because his cap hold is going to be a little bit lower than what he ultimately signs for. So like there are some decent teams that will have space. There are also some like really low end teams that will have space. I think the Heat can theoretically get to space if memory serves. But that would require like them, not extending anybody and like getting really, really low up against the cap, basically. Like they have Adebayo's extension kicking in. They have the 33 for Hero. And then they'd have to find a taker, I think, for Wiggins, like at the deadline, which I think they might be able to do that, honestly. I think Wiggins would be a good get for some teams. So like Miami is a team that I think can get to space. I'm like trying to think who else there is. There are a few others that might be able to do it.
Chicago a team that could do it?
Chicago is definitely a team that can get to space. That is the other team that can get to space. And honestly, they, in all likelihood, unless they trade Vucevic for like a player that has money past this year, which I think would be wild, they almost certainly will have space. So like that's probably a team that if I was Aaron Turner, I'd be looking at and going, okay, Chicago could do this, right? Like Chicago is a organization that could do this. Brooklyn might be able to do it. I don't think I would do it if I was the Wizards. I just kind of haven't. They don't have a ton of fours. We talked about that in the Eastern Conference over-unders. Like they don't have, it's like Cam Whitmore. It's, like Anthony Gill is there right now that can play the 4. I guess like Dylan Jones theoretically can play the 4. Justin Champagnie, like it's guys like that. So if they wanted like a bigger body, maybe I guess you could sell me on the Wizards, but I don't know that totally tracks. The Jazz are a team that can definitely get space, but like I don't know that the Jazz really track for Kuminga either. And maybe they could trade for him. If the other thing that's worth noting, and I'll transition to this in a second, is like I don't know that Lowry actually works anymore for the Warriors, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when I say all of that, like, do any of those teams track for you in terms of, hey, they might have space, they will have space, and they would prioritize Kuminga?
Chicago's the one that stands out, depending on what Noah Essengay looks like. I think based off what I think Noah Essengay is and how far away he's going to be, I don't think I would make a decision. If I believed in Jonathan Kaminga, if I was the Bulls front office, I don't think Noah Essengay would stop me from making that move. I think him and Modest would be fine. And this would just be a bet on, hey, we're going to be the fastest playing team in the NBA. And if I can have Josh Giddey with the ball in his hands and Modest on one wing and Kuminga on the other wing, and I'm going to try to recreate Vooch with the younger floor spacing center. Okay. Like I'm not saying I would love that or be excited about it, but if I'm Chicago, I think I could talk myself into that. And then I think the other one that like Brooklyn, just as a talent play and a team that could use a guy that goes and gets a bucket. I mean, I guess it would be a little bit funny that you trade out Cam Thomas for Jonathan Kuminga without actually, not actually trading for each other. But I guess those are the two teams that kind of stand out to me in regards to the ones we mentioned there.
The other team I'll note is Charlotte. Okay, if they want to continue to build around like the LaMelo, Brandon Miller kind of duo, and they have Konkanippel as a shooter, like all three of those guys can really shoot. And then if you think Kalkbrenner can shoot, like that could be your, theoretical.
And you just get out of the Miles Bridges business in some capacity, whatever.
He would only have one year left on his deal after this coming year.
Sure.
Like they have like 20 million that they can give Kuminga. So that's another team that could at least track for me. Trade targets for the Warriors now. So like the Markkanen thing doesn't really work financially because they're hard capped now at the first apron or at the second apron. So I'm trying to figure out how that financially can even track. I don't really think that it does. I've tried to do like different things where it's like Hield and Moody and Kuminga for Lowry, and I still think that that's not enough money. So I think Lowry is probably done with the Warriors. I mean, like Michael Porter, you can make work if the Nets wanted to do that. I'm like trying to think of players. Andrew Wiggins is an interesting one to me. Like,
I like Andrew Wiggins, Sam. I probably like Andrew Wiggins more than most people do.
Wiggins actually does kind of work for me here because you could do Kuminga and like Buddy Hield for Wiggins, and that actually just like works. I'm not saying that'd be the only pieces of the deal, but something like that works and would probably actually be a pretty good fit for the Warriors given Wiggins's comfort within their scheme. Trying to think of like other teams. So like the Kings obviously went down this road again. Like I think the same kind of things apply, right? Where unless they're willing to move Keegan Murray, if they don't extend him, and I think they'll probably extend him at the end of the day. The only real two guys that work here are DeMar DeRozan and Malik Monk. And I don't know why the Warriors would want them based off of what we know. Like I can see a case for them wanting Monk. It's just that it seems like they're not all that interested in Monk based off of what we know. I mean, any other targets? The Suns would be another team. It would have to be like Jalen Green for Kuminga and Hield or something, but I don't know if that tracks really either.
So a couple teams I'll throw out, like Toronto is a team I don't think it makes sense because you're still just getting another like number 2 option. But
go ahead.
No, I just like, is there something there though where they think he's like this perfect fit next to Scotty, and you build out these, these 2 bigger, forwards. I don't know what the money says, but
I mean, the money's pretty easy. They just have a lot of different options like that they could do here. Like you could make Ingram work, you could make Quickly work, you could make Barrett work. A lot of things work. You could also do like consolidation deals where if the Raptors just really liked Kuminga and the Raptors decide not to extend Oshai.
You get a young guy.
It could be like, like Och and, like Grady Dick or something, plus Barrett for Kaminga and Hield or like something like that, right?
Is there anybody?
Again, I don't think the Raptors should have interest in Kaminga. Like I'm just trying to say what this could look like financially. I don't think the Raptors should do Kaminga.
No, I'm with you. I just was. Is there anything with Chicago like Vooch? Is he still attractive for them at all with Horford?
Not with Horford to me. I mean, is there if the Pistons decide Tobias Harris is going to go after this year, is there like an Isaiah Stewart and something for Kuminga deal?
Oh man, no, I'm good.
I wouldn't do it if I was the Pistons, to be clear. Like I think Stewart's like a pretty big piece for them. The Suns, like I said, another team that, had interest previously. Yeah, I just don't really see that for them. I think that the Drew Holiday deal, my read on where the Warriors are right now is they want to keep everything kind of limited to that 2-year window that they have with Curry, Butler, and Green. I believe that Drew Holiday has 3 years left. So like if the Holiday thing for whatever reason just like doesn't work in Portland, I think it's going to work fine, but like I'm just kind of trying to come up with ideas. I still don't think the Holiday thing tracks for the Warriors because he has the extra year on his deal. And I don't know how excited they're going to be about doing that. I mean, like the funny one now that I'm thinking about it would be Dame coming home to Oakland if he'd be willing to do that. But I think he has a full no trade clause. And I think he wants to stay in Portland for the rest of his career is kind of my read based off of what we saw in his statements and everything. I mean, anybody else here that like could do this?
For what it's worth, I know.
Okay, I'll give you a name.
Okay.
I don't think the Pelicans will move Zion.
So I was going to bring up New Orleans if Zion, okay. What's the trade though? Zion?
I mean, it'd be like Kuminga and Hield and Moody for Zion and like minimums and picks. Obviously, like you give New Orleans picks.
Yeah. Yes. Give me Draymond and Zion. Yes. And Jimmy Butler. Yes.
I mean, look, it doesn't fit like on court. I'm not sitting here saying it's a great idea.
No, I know. No, I want to see it though.
It'd be fun. It'd be really fun. So like the players you're looking at here to kind of close this loop, right? The players you're looking at here are guys in the, let's call it 20 to 38-ish $1 million range. You could get to 40, but like you have to include all of Hield, Moody, and Kuminga. And then you probably have to take a couple of minimums back in order to make that work just in terms of a deal. It gets very complicated. The second apron makes things complicated for the Warriors because they are, in all likelihood, kind of right up against it at the end of the day. So, final thing on this, because I just have to do this. The way Shams framed this is so funny to me. Like, ending a summer-long stalemate. I'll put it up on the screen. Ending a summer-long stalemate. Let's fix the screen here. Jonathan Kuminga has agreed to a 2-year, $48.5 million contract to return to the Golden State Warriors. The deal has a team option designed for the contract to be ripped up and negotiated next summer.
What does that mean?
Through negotiations with Mike Dunleavy Jr. and Turner from July to September, the Golden State Warriors ultimately increased their offer by a total of $8 million in a 2-year framework and guaranteed Kuminga $15 more million than his qualifying offer would have for this season. Kuminga chose this 2-year deal over 3 years and $75 million so he can maintain a higher level of control over his immediate future. The Warriors never wavered on team option frameworks. Now both sides understand the likelihood of exploring trades when Kuminga is eligible in January. There is nothing about a team option that is designed to like be ripped up and renegotiated, like from an agency perspective. Like if Kuminga plays well and the Warriors decide, hey, we want to keep him, like maybe they do it, but then like the agency loses all negotiating value because the Warriors can just go, look, we have him for $25 million next year. Let's make him prove it again. Right. Like it gives you no leverage whatsoever. Or if he's bad, they can just get rid of the team option. So there's nothing about this that goes, oh yeah, this is a positive that he got a team option here.
So, because what was left, what makes this team option different than every other team? Like, that's what I was waiting for. This team option is designed to be ripped up and renegotiated. Well, tell me what's different about this team option than every other team option that's ever been given to a player. Because in how many ever that's been given, I've never heard that phrasing. So I want to know what's in the contract that is designed for this one to be ripped up and renegotiated. It is... The framing is amazing. I love it. Hilarious.
It's so funny. It's just so funny to me that that's how it was framed. Like the team option is not a win for Kaminga. Like it's not like designed for the Warriors to have control over the situation.
If it was, we would have talked about it a month ago, Sam. We wouldn't be talking about it at whatever time Eastern, the day that it needed to get done, because they lose all their leverage if they don't.
Yeah, this is a great win for the Warriors, I think, like to get this deal done. It gives them all sorts of flexibility to remove the trade option, according to Shams, or the no trade, inherent no trade that he would have is a massive, massive win for the Warriors. Yeah, like they just had all the leverage. That's what restricted free agency is. When you look at all of the levers here, restricted free agency is essentially meant to deflate the salaries of these mid-tier guys, while taking care of the max guys, right? That's really what ends up happening here. And honestly, there are probably teams that would have given Paolo if he would have hit unrestricted free agency this summer and there was no, 30, 35, 25% limiter on salaries based on experience. Someone probably gives Paolo 35% of the salary cap this past summer at the end of the day. Like if that, I would guess that would have, or next summer, I'm sorry, when he would become a free agent. So we can talk about restricted free agency like not existing, and I would be generally in favor of it. Like I think that if they were going to do that, I would want to extend rookie scale deals a little bit longer. If you want to get rid of restricted free agency, and I don't know that anybody's going to want that either. I think Jonathan Kuminga would probably not be a fan of that based off of how all of this went, but restricted free agency essentially deflates salaries is the reality of this entire situation. And yeah, Kuminga just never had the leverage that they tried to pretend that they had. That's the reality of the situation. And now we'll see where he ends up in January. Well, maybe it's with the Warriors. Maybe it's with another team.
Yep. It'll be, again, now we are very much closing in on seeing what things look like out on the court. And that will be one of the more fascinating things to watch early in the year, how he's used, how he's deployed, and how he fits in with that roster. And if they're able to find something.
That's right. Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
At Motor City Hoops on Twitter, Blue Sky, got the Substack. And as Sam mentioned at the top, got a couple video breakdowns, Dash Daniels, Kareem Lopez on the Game Theory with Sam V Substack as well. More of those to come as games pick up. Maybe I'll do something from exhibition games if there's something that comes up. But Pistons Pulse podcast. Otherwise, right here, Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie. Come back on Thursday for Western Conference over-unders.
Go to the Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. We will have some breakdowns posting. Bryce's Dash Daniels and Karim Lopez went up. I will have some Michael Brown breakdowns going up over the course of this week as well. Go to The Athletic. We have a bunch of great stuff up there right now on the Jonathan Kuminga situation with new Athletic Warriors writer, Nick Friedel. So that's exciting. Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We will be back on Thursday with win total over-unders for the Western Conference. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.